Formally, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you. A very good afternoon. On behalf of the Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy, AEEE, it is my pleasure to welcome the presenters and attendees to this webinar on decarbonizing the grid, driving change through people and technology. I am Ritobroto Sen, Senior Manager, Industry Engagement at AEEE, and I am joined by my colleagues in this room, Sumed Agarwal, Director, Smart and Resilient Power and Mobility, is right opposite to me. Besides Sumed, we have Paras Bhattarai, Senior Research Associate, and right to my right, I have Bhairav Sharma, Deputy Manager, Membership and Training. I would like to share a very brief introduction about AEEE in a couple of slides. Hope my screen is visible. Subject, okay. So the slide that you see on your screen, it's an overview about our organization. It has the vision, mission, the organization goals. But most importantly, what sets us apart from any other think tanks, research bodies, is that we are an industry-led research organization. So AEEE promotes energy efficiency as a resource and collaborates with industry and government to transform the market for energy efficient products and services, thereby contributing toward meeting India's goals on energy security, clean energy, and climate change. As I said, we are a premier industry-led research organizations. The member organizations are our strength. As of today, we have 79 member organizations, and many of them are directly or indirectly involved in our research projects, thus contributing to the organization goals and the growth of the energy efficiency ecosystem in the country. In terms of our work, these are the 5 key verticals that AEEE operates in, right from low carbon built environment. The sub-bullets under each of these verticals goes on to show our focus areas, the verticals under each of these verticals. Under sustainable cooling and cold chain, we focus on energy efficient cooling technologies, policy enablement, technical assistance, and similarly under smart and resilient power and smart mobility. Global and local action highlights our work with various government, both at the central as well as state level agencies. The decarbonization catalyst, the last vertical, is a cross-cutting vertical which supports the first 4 vertical. As you can see, whether it's an ESCO model or a data analysis, benchmarking, financing, these are all required for the 4 other verticals that I just spoke to you about. A couple of key initiatives of AEEE. AEEE was the key knowledge partner for MOEFCC in the development of the India Cooling Action Plan. Any kind of the discourse on thermal comfort and sustainable cooling in India is based on that document prepared by AEEE. Apart from that, we work very closely with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and also at various state level, we have signed MOUs as part of the State Energy Efficiency Action Plan. In terms of our engagement with the private sector, we have various working groups that we have formed with our members, including one on demand flexibility. Apart from this, we work with the industry on white paper, syndicated research, and CSR projects. You will find a few of our leading key reports and publications on our website, and if you follow us on our social media. In fact, a few of the leading organizations from the industry with whom we have closely worked are Infosys, Train, Saint-Gobain, in fact, Oracle as well. We have a speaker from Oracle and Symphony. Specific to today's webinar, as it is focused on the smart and resilient power and mobility, this particular vertical of AEEE promotes demand-side management, particularly supporting demand flexibility solutions to help balance supply and demand on the electricity grid by supporting regulations and planning, designing schemes, developing innovative business models, monitoring and verification, and capacity building. Finally, a couple of lines about the ION Zero webinar series. Today is the 5th episode of this series. ION Zero was conceptualized earlier this year, and it offers deep dive into critical solutions for achieving net zero. The episodes under this series cover 4 thematic areas: latest products and technology innovations, breakthrough financing models, evolving regulatory policies, and emerging career and skilling opportunities in the net zero ecosystem. Presentations today in the 5th episode under this series will be delivered by industry experts from 2 leading member organizations. And with this, it is my pleasure to request our 2 speakers to take about a minute or so to introduce themselves and probably tell our audience what they have to look forward to through your presentations. May I request Mr. Iyer from Sixth Energy Technologies to first take a minute to introduce himself and the topic that you will be presenting on.
Yeah, thank you very much. The organizing team members from AEEE, thank you for inviting me to this important webinar. I represent Sixth Energy Technologies Private Limited, which is a company focusing on IoT-based solutions for remote monitoring. The use cases of IoT are in energy monitoring, device monitoring, cooling, security, surveillance, and safety. But a quick word about my own experience. I have about 32 years of experience, largely focused on the energy and utility sector. I started my career with Reliance Industries Limited. I worked there on power generation project development. Subsequently worked with CRISIL in their advisory team. We were advising several state electricity boards before the unbundling process started. Then worked with PwC, continuing in the energy and utilities advisory space, working with governments, policymakers, regulators, and utilities who had then, between 2001 and 2010, most of them, undertook a radical shift in their organization, mainly unbundling from a vertical integrated utility to generation, transmission, distribution utilities. And then all of them were regulated under a new regulatory regime. The regulatory regime evolved based on several legislations. Initially, the Regulatory Commissions Act of 1998, followed by the Electricity Act of 2003. And then each of them had to shape up and perform in accordance with the regulatory mandate. And they required assistance. And I worked across about 14, 15 states in India advising them. Then worked, after 2010, I worked at a boutique investment banking and consulting firm called Meghraj Capital. I formed the infra consulting practice there, grew it over 10 years, and then sold it to a German consulting firm, Fischner. That was in 2021. And then in 2023, I moved to Sixth Energy Technologies, and I have been working there. My role is mainly to strike strategic partnerships, to grow the business for Sixth Energy, and also to raise capital for Sixth Energy. That's my summary. Over to you, Sabyasachi.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar. Yeah, good afternoon all, and good afternoon everyone at AEEE. Thanks for having me here to talk about the topic which I would be. So I represent Oracle Utilities, erstwhile Oracle Energy and Water. So I basically lead the demand side solution provider of Oracle by the name of OPower for India, and also for the region as a regulatory affairs and market development lead for the whole of JPAC. So as you would be knowing, about Oracle and Oracle OPower, Oracle is the software solution provider. But the OPower side of it, which I represent and which I would be talking today, is on the demand side, data analytics, along with behavioral science. That's how. So OPower used to be a startup in 2000. It all started in 2005-6 during the San Francisco blackout, and then it took over. It was a part of Oracle in 2015. And what we do is we work along with the utilities where we use our AI ML platform to drive action along with the kind of the data, metadata which utility has of the consumers, and drive action to the consumers. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And about me, I'm into the sector for the last 26 years. I have many colleagues here like Sumed. We have worked together in various various organizations. I had worked with Jindal Steel and Power, Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, and few others. I mean, you might not be interested, but then let's switch on to the topic. Yeah, this is where I belong currently, and I will be talking today about not about the smart meters and the software, but about the human angle which will drive scale and how it's going to be instrumental in achieving the net zero and energy transition and decarbonization, which we are talking about. The very important element of the end consumer. That's what I'm going to kind of talk about, and how we help the utility and the consumer. I'm going to explain that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patnaik. Thank you, Mr. Iyer. I'm sure the audience has a lot to look forward to. So with this background, I would request Sumit to set the context, take about 3 to 5 minutes and set the context for the webinar today. Over to you, Sumit.
Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, Sumedh,
So, thank you so much, PI. So good afternoon to experts and attendees who have took out time to attend this important webinar on decarbonizing the grid, driving change through people and technology. One of the things which is I'm very passionate about, and like RBS has given me 3 minutes, so I will be very precise. At the outset, I feel that there are 3 drivers which are shaping the grid which we are going to have in future, especially in India. So the first driver is renewable energies on rise. I mean, when I say that India is aggressively expanding its renewable energy, and 50% of the capacity from clean energy, non-fossil sources is now in 2025 already met. So which means 5 years ahead of schedule. I mean, this is a very significant achievement. India, I always say, is a solar story and something which we should be proud of. But at the same point of time, I also see the second driver, that is the non-solar hours challenge. When I say the installed capacity has increased, the capacity has increased, but not the generation, because generation is needed all 24 hours in a day. And the rapid growth, this challenge remains the evening peak demand, which is the non-solar hours. And evening peak demand is on gradual rise, which actually is creating a larger problem, because most of the consumption, if you are not able to meet that, you have to shed the load, and that definitely reduces the economic progress as well as creates dissatisfaction among the consumers. So having said that, there are few more things which everyone should be aware about is the way India is progressing. We have a very good per capita electricity consumption, now around 2,800. But the way the cooling demand is going to increase, again, evening peak is something which where peak cooling is going to contribute. The way electric mobility is shaping up in India, the way fuel switch is happening, where we are trying to electrify most of the things as we tend to decarbonize. This needs to be met. I mean, the reliability, the quality of power, the progress has to be met, and there is no doubt about it. So the third driver is about how we can do it. I mean, we have resources. Again, we have coal, we have solar, we have wind. We are trying to decarbonize. But the hidden weapon in our caveat is the powerful partnership of consumers and technology. I mean, this is a piece which definitely we have to really think about, because I have seen that they are the most effective tools for any radical change which we want to bring. Utilities were being asked to move forward the DSM programs, and we started doing them. And there were many initiatives, especially on the demand side. I mean, when we talk about demand response, this is an area where we really have to start looking into and see how it can be driven more. The reason why I'm saying so is that there have been many pilots on how to reduce the demand during the peak time. And mind that this peak comes only for few hours in a year. Say, for example, the peak is 250 gigawatt for India. Only for 100 hours, it has gone to that 250 gigawatt, for which you actually have an installed resource, which you are paying more. If you are able to reduce the demand using the consumers or through the consumers and the technology, a significant revenue you are able to save, which you can utilize for upgradation of other infrastructure. I'll share some examples, and I'm sure many examples are there which my learned experts, Sabyasachi and CI, will also be sharing. One example is one of the progressive private utility in Delhi. They went with a behavioral demand response program where the triggers during that peak event were controlled through a software. Now they were naturally, when you try to reduce your demand at the consumer end, you want an incentive. But the consumer engagement of that particular utility was so strong that even without an incentive, consumers was willing to reduce because they felt that it is a common good and they are very keen to support the utility. So that is the power of consumer engagement, and that is where the progressive utilities have started thinking, because the business model is getting changed. It is no longer a monolithic organization. It is an organization which has to be driven by distributed energy resources which come through consumers. So I always feel that technology like IoT and also the consumer engagement are the tools, the weapons which we have to harness and look into more for a decarbonized grid. Mr. Chandrasekhar Iyer, Mr. Sabyasachi, I had an opportunity to work with both of them, and I'm pretty sure they have many things to share with you today. You are in very good hands with these experts who are going to share wealth of information which you would love to listen. So with that, I just conclude, and I will ask Ritubrata to proceed with the next steps in this webinar. Thank you so much for patient hearing.
Thank you, Sumit. That sets this webinar up perfectly. Couple of hygiene stuff for all our attendees. We want this webinar to be as interactive as possible. So in your screen, you will find a chat box as well as a Q&A box. Our request is that you put your questions based on the presentations that you listen to in the Q&A box, and any kind of hygiene issues in terms of audio, video, please put it in the chat box. So this is our request that will help us focus, collect all the questions at the end of the presentation and pose it to the speakers. We will try to take up as many questions as possible once the presentations are over. So with that, I invite our first presenter, Mr. Sabyasachi Patnaik, to share the screen and begin his presentation. Sabya, you will have 25 minutes, and I will ping you at the 20th minute to wind up. And further to that, we will have 5 minutes of Q&A. Over to you, Sabya. Just one suggestion, if you could be a little louder, that would be helpful to all of us.
Oh, am I not? Okay.
Yes,
so
yes,
sorry.
this is good.
Is it better? Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right. Thank you. Okay, let's deep dive right away. So, okay, right. So as Sumit had set the tone, which is very, very pertinent, and that's what I'm going to talk about, is customer, consumer, and their action is the most valuable than ever at this juncture, where we are talking about many things: renewable integration, energy transition, decarbonization, net zero, many things. But then the persons or the people who are going to make the difference and make it realize is of course the ultimate consumers. And that's where kind of the whole thing, sector and the drive for action is which flies about. So this is where O-Power works with the utilities for the consumers, and what we say for consumers, it is no price, right? It is what we do is we help the grid, we help the utilities in driving action. That's what kind of we do for the residential consumers. While we do definitely work with CNI, but then we are expert, we are specialists. Started this particular solution, which is a mix of data analytics, both smart and monthly meter. Smart is better, more the merrier, and kind of then comes the monthly meter. And as Sumit said, we were a part of the India's largest behavioral energy efficiency program. Other utility, not what Sumit was talking about, but then the other utility where we had a 24 months program with BSCS Rajdhani on behavioral energy efficiency and customer engagement. And that is what I would be talking about. So this is a typical kind of an example where I have lifted it from my US folks. It's kind of let's say it's a household where this is a thermostat which has been kind of installed, and this is the lady of the house, or kind of I mean, like the main person who sets it, who's aware of, who sets this to a kind of specified temperature level, which should be the one she's aware of. But then kind of and this is a case study. It's not kind of I mean, it's not a made up one, but it's a case study by NBER, and that's kind of you can check that as well. So what it talks about is how the human uh, behaves and works along with the kind of the smart meters, and how, if it is with the action and without being kind of taking them across. So what happens is, so this is through kind of I'll come back to the story in the next slide, but then it just talks about what do we know, like I mean, this is a randomized experiment which had happened where, and this was about the thermostat, as I talked about. But then as the manufacturer says, the claims are kind of that with the smart thermostats, the achievements would be kind of to 2x, 3x, or 4x. Yes, it can be, but then everybody in the household has to get a buy-in and aware of. And that's what kind of which we found, that here in this case, if this particular kind of thermostat, where the lady of the house had already set, but then if the boy who's not aware of, and he kind of tries to do whatever he needs to be or he wants to be, like changing the thermostat, so the whole goal and the purpose is defeated. And that's kind of what I'm coming from. I'm trying to set the tone. And as Sumit had talked about, I feel these are the four what you say kind of net zero activity and path for the distribution, not three, but the four, for according to me. But then if you can see, out of this four, we are actually from the kind of demand side management side, right? While clean energy, yes, as everybody knows that it is a supply side, but then the other is three, where the demand side, energy efficiency, energy beneficial electrification, which is kind of switching it to greener energy generation, and demand flexibility, when to, what to, and how to. So these are all kind of where you could kind of and what we have found in our experience of 15 years, and also through many various studies, that consumer action really kind of when everybody or a large community really works on these kind of reduce 2x of emission, more than that of if you are really replacing to kind of now that the numbers is 135. It can be kind of coal plants, but number of gas plants, or any thermal based generation. So that's kind of is the power of inclusion and awareness. And that's where and this is a study by Brattle, the International Research Organization, and that's where I'm kind of coming from. So now, as it has been told to everyone, and everybody is aware, the consumer is now in the epicenter of everything. Like it's no more, they are no more a consumer. It's more of a prosumer who they are. Like where they generate, they consume, they had a say, when to, how to kind of, and of course, but the first and foremost thing is they need to be aware, and they need to know what to do. They need to be aware how it to be done and what is the benefits of it for the grid, for the utility, which ultimately kind of, boils down to the consumer kind of, that's how it is. So that's what we say. And what we do in the Oracle OPAR, we help through our energy efficiency, electrification, and demand flexibility solutions to take action at scale. That's very important, action to scale, where it's not 1 to 100. It has to be like, the majority of the consumer base of the utility who needs to be aware, who needs to be engaged, who needs to be come into action, play into action. That's what we try to do. And what we do, it's a journey. It can't be like, it can't be instant. It can't be a short journey, and you need to be, and the utility need to be always stand by the consumer through giving and with the consumer, with giving them the options, where the first step lies in awareness, making them aware about, let's say, many scheme of things, which includes smarter appliances, which includes maybe kind of, the usage pattern, what they are saying. And then, like, then it is about, sorry, there is a call. Sorry, just so yeah, the second stage, after this awareness, which takes a time, which we are trying to kind of, make them aware. We are trying to, in the due course of time, adoption to smarter technologies, smarter appliances, smarter vehicles, EV, and the way they consume things, adoption to newer technology. And of course, the last, which has the ultimate goal of any of the utility to be digitized, and which will help them for the achieving kind of, the goals of net zero, decarbonization. That's kind of, the whole thing. What we do, I'm trying to simplify with this particular animation. And let's say these are the readings of the smart meters, which we take it, or in meter. And what we derive is this, for the consumer, through the utility. Not consumer directly, but so these are various things which I'm going to explain to you later on very, very briefly. But these are what we do. We try to simplify the things. We take the complex data and try to give them the granular information, the insights to the consumer, to the utility, which will drive action, as I said, and make that impact. And we have, this is what in very brief say, what we OPower is. So this is a customer experience platform, which drives on demand flexibility, energy efficiency, electrification, equity and affordability, where digital engagement and kind of, and technical services, of course, that's kind of, the thing. So what all we do under this, you can see, I don't want to get into that. I'll keep on time for more discussions, but these are all the solutions and the look under the head, which we do that. What we have achieved till date, till our inception, 2006 or 7, end of 2006, early 2007, through these interventions, which I talked very briefly, which I'll deep down, through energy efficiency, demand flexibilities, we have saved on 38 terawatt hours, 480 megawatt of plus of peak load demand in one event. I'm not talking about cumulative. 6x of faster deployment, faster program deployment. And this is a very, very important aspect, which I kind of, can come again if I have time. And then, of course, now as a path to digitization, the views, how do you know that a consumer is getting digitalized? So, more and more, consumer clicks into their app, more and more consumers get into their account, look into the usage pattern, and that's how what we have seen. Digital sales services, of course, it it also reduces the cost of operation for the utilities, and of course, ultimately, 95% of the satisfied customers through these interventions, through these initiatives by the utilities for the consumers. That's kind of one thing. we'll take a minute to give you a very interesting statistics or a study which was being done by Accenture, which talks about, the duration an individual uses to look into their, utility bills. So it is 9 minutes, okay, in whole of 365 days. So that's a study which was being done. I'm kind of taking that code. So there are two ways to look into this particular interesting. So one way is to, to increase the duration if it is possible, which is very, very difficult. I mean, it's not impossible, but difficult. The other is to reach to the customer or consumers and be as effective as possible in these 9 minutes, which we have. So these are the intervention which will be effective and try to make maximum utilization of this particular 9 minutes window which a utility has. And of course, if we can increase it, nothing like it. That's the thing. So yeah, I mean, if we now we are talking about net zero decarbonization, I've tried to quantify in terms of what we have saved on or avoided for the consumer, for the distribution, which is of course tagged into to the generation, 19 million metric tons of CO2 through the savings, 38 terawatt hours, and which I talked about. And of course, if we talk about savings in terms of monetary, this is how you can say that that's what we have said. What we do, now coming back to what Oracle OPAR does, is we have, before diving down onto this, I'll let you know, I haven't put on this slide purposefully. I didn't want to talk about what Oracle does and what are the capabilities. Everybody I don't want to get into that. We can go for that sales speech or bragging of Oracle. But then one thing is very important is the meter reads which we have or Oracle has, that has the maximum of meter reads which we can have, that is 3 trillion meter reads. What does that mean for the utility, for the consumer? That means, the AI and ML platform on which our solution run can be as precise, as insightful, as granular as possible because of this 3+ trillion meter reads which we have, and that will tries to drive action within the consumer. So what we do now, coming back to the slide, is we try to influence customer to drive action with using of the behavioral science and using the meter data, and we definitely we have behavioral scientists in our team who does the report which is being generated has a play, how it should look like, what should be the gap, you might find few of the reports in following slides, and of course simplifying the data. The 9 minutes stats which I shared is so relevant. I also don't see my electricity bill being in the industry for the last 25. What we see generally, most of them, 99, 97, 95% of the people, is about what's the payment which you need to do, what's the due date, and that's talks about, and so much of information is down there in that electricity bill, which is relevant or might not be, but then it needs to be simplified for a simple normal who are not really literate to understand those, and it has to be a language which they can relate to, and that's what we try to do. We simplify the things. That's the thing. Now coming back to, now I talked about what we do, how we do. So this is what one thing which I have tried to do, talked about. While we do many things, as you would have seen, we are doing is appliance level disaggregation through the meter data. We have along with that, how we we leverage the deep learning which we have the data on, and then the most sophisticated machine learning techniques to come to an accuracy level of these which you can see in the chart, that air condition. So what we do is that we break down the consumption pattern for the consumer, okay, for let's say a TOD. So the consumer knows okay, this is what I am doing for certain hours of time. But what I am doing is, this is what kind of, the appliance level disaggregation data does. And the customer engagement, which is parallel, very, very essential. And along with AEEE, we have published a white paper in 2 years back, 2023, 3 years back, and then you can find more the perceptions and the perspectives of many utilities whom you interacted. But then this is what we are like, in the, so this is what it looks out like, but what I was doing those are, as I raised this question, okay, I know that I'm using more in between 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. But what I was doing, so this is what kind of, the appliance level disaggregation talks about. Going further, what we do is that letting the consumer know that, okay, after a while, after 2 weeks times or 3 weeks times or maybe in a month time, that this is what you have saved on, like, how the pattern had been. So this is typically a report looks like. You have seen in past slides my reports, home energy report is one such report which we have kind of, we were the first, OPower was the first to start, which brings behavioral science to the energy efficiency field. And the home energy report is one such output which we are very proud of, and we have been started. So that's kind of, this is a part of the home energy report, which you can see. These are the savings which the consumer have. So these few things which you would kind of, look into that, and it's few of the utilities, which has kind of, as an example, in US, we have done one program, very successful program at VSES, where we could see that around 83% people were really receptive. Out of those 2 lakh consumers, 200,000 consumers, they were receptive of this particular program, and they had a change in perspective for the utility, while that was a third-party audit, which was survey which was done, and they said they found utility trying to save money for the consumer, which is very unlikely through these kind of, that is what I'm talking about. Once you build the trust, you build the kind of, those customer engagement platform, other things are very easy to flow in, whether it is promotion of solar rooftops, promotion of kind of, EV rates, or any smarter appliances. That's how kind of, the power of customer engagement does. And that's what we do. These are all the kind of, omni-channel way of interpreting, which OPower does through physical copies, through mobile interventions, tab or laptop. So these are kind of, omni-channel, technology agnostic. We don't have to have an Oracle system in place. We can do it through BSES. Rajdhani doesn't have an Oracle. Still, we kind of, so it's a technology agnostic solution. And of course, like, as I said, it is very, very for the consumer, for them, it's no price, no device. I'm specifically talking about no price because, sometimes the consumers become apprehensive, speculative, saying that, if you are putting on a hardware, how it is going to be. Is it a breach of privacy? Is it my kind of, is it that my meter is going to run fast? Is there any, am I compromising with my secrecy and privacy? So these are those things which can be negated. And as a third-party Guidehouse Insights, we have been since 2023 the market leader. And yeah, I mean, I'm now coming to the end of my discussion. As everybody knows that energy supply is one thing. It is very, very important. Nobody can negate that. But then it will take time, and of course kind of and decades and money to build on. Till that time, awareness and what we can do by changing small habits, small behaviors through these interventions are very, very essential to drive the decarbonization and net zero goals of the nation and of the utilities kind of. Yeah, I mean, these are the technology, but then the human factor, a power of people is really, really important to drive action. And that's what I'm kind of talking about. And this is one of our client which I have picked up is Paul, who had talked about this particular which is so relevant in this today's world. And the net zero journey can't be fulfilled, can't be achieved if each and every one doesn't participate. And that's what I'll be talking about. So these are which you have seen. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, that's all. I think I am on time. Am I?
Yes, Sabir,
Beautiful.
you're bang on time.
Thanks.
Thank you. So with this, in fact, that gives us probably a minute or two more where we can take up the questions. So with this, I would hand over to my colleague Paras. He will facilitate the Q&A sessions. We have a few questions in the chat box, and I'm sure Paras has curated a few of his own. Over to you, Paras.
Thank you, Sabyasachi, for such an enriching presentation. Like the savings that were presented were very significant. The question that I have is, generally in the behavioral energy efficiency programs, we have seen the savings are short term, like for example, through home energy report, right? So in your experience in the international programs, have you seen there are the long-term saving as well that impact the consumer behavior in the longer run?
Right. I'll try to rephrase, Paras. It's not short term. It might be small, right? It is to the tune of 1.5%, but it is perennial. I mean, when I say perennial, it is year on year, like, so for the last 15 years and till the time, like, the energy usage is increasing at the rate of more than 5%, 4%, let's say, in our country, but then behavioral energy efficiencies saving is very, very stable, might be small, but then, combining each and every household, it's really very, very impact kind of, building 38 terawatt plus hours is like, taking off Delhi whole of 1 year. I mean, that's if I draw simile to it. So it is, as you said, like, as the question was asked, it's not short term, it's very, very long term. It is perennial. That's what I'm trying to kind of, stress upon. But it is, I mean, it's 1.5% to 2. So for a developed economy, we have seen in US to the tune of 2.5% of savings. What we have seen in India, we have worked with 2 utilities, to the tune of 1%, a little more than 1% also savings, which we have seen at BSES. Now we have to see the consumer category as well. Like, let's say somebody who's in the bracket of 200 kilowatt hours, I mean, what is the propensity to save? The more that you use, the propensity to save is more, right? So if somebody is using 200 watts, and that too with a policy which we are talking about, which has a free power, so there is no incentive for them to save. But utility is smart here. If they want to really kind of, target, they need to let the consumer know that, if you are going to be 2001, then you are going to, 201, then you have to pay for all 201. So the freebies or the free electricity is gone. So what I'm trying to tell is, it is not at all short term. No, I mean, it is very, very long term. But yes, the savings is year on year, very, very continuous fashion. At the same time, it is optimizing the savings. I mean, that's where when the utility needs to save, we do the saves. Like, I mean, that's the savings. That's what I can tell you.
Thank you, Sabyasachi, for that. Generally, the another question that I have is the leading question. Okay, in India, we have worked with utility, and what we have seen is there are many pilots that have been initiated. But there is still like the no larger level program, right? But in the recent, there are a few policies and the regulations that are coming around the demand response, demand flexibility as well. So what do you see? Like, will this kind of the program will be keep evolving for India as well? How is the scope here?
Yeah. Okay. There was a slide in between in my presentation where I talked about how the consumer is the epicenter of every activities, where now they are prosumers. So, the things are changing rapidly and for good. So including the policies. So there is one on resource adequacy also, their energy efficiency is being talked about. You're very correct in saying that, all these while we talked about, we have been hearing about pilots after pilots. There has been no full-scale utility, but then yeah, there are the things are changing, and I'm hoping that it would be changing where, as I said, like on the kind of the pathway to net zero, out of the four pathways which I see, you see the demand side is 3 out of 4, beside only one is the supply side. Yes, I agree in saying that supply is the easiest one, right, to build on. But then places like the urban community where the space is a constraint, where you need, and as Sumit very pertinently said, the peak comes for a couple of hours, in whole of the year. So would are we be judicious in spending that much amount of money to build on the capex investment, or substations and transformers just for a few hours? Or we try to manage the demand by taking the consumer into action. So I feel the things are changing for good, and in years and months to come, we are kind of we should see that. And I have seen the change in the perspective of utilities like BACS, as Sumit talked about, the other utility, Tata Power, my own utility, Tata Power, Delhi, Mumbai, they have been taking many such initiatives, and yeah, I mean, the things are changing. Yes, not to the pace at which we wanted, for sure, but then yes, I think I'm optimistic that the things are going to change, and change for good. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Just the last one question that we have from the audience. Uh, like in the 1 or 1.5% savings that we have generally seen, what are the end use or the appliances that generally you have seen that contribute the most to the savings?
Yeah, look, it is shifting the load, basically. Like, it is very difficult for what we saw. I'll tell you the live example of Delhi, which kind of where we had run this program for around 24 months or so. So what we see that the peaking, like this was all monthly meters, so we can't pinpoint the appliance for sure. But then what we have drawn, the utility and ourselves, that we have seen the savings is more when there is the usage is more. Like, as I said, the propensity to save is where there is an usage. So when is the usage is more? The peaking period, right? So let's say if it is a summertime, the peaking periods is like, the ACs, the air coolers are the ones. If it is the winter peak, the heating devices are the ones. So that's what we can infer to, because of the restrictive data which we didn't have. So we couldn't run a appliance level disaggregation for a monthly meter, but yes, smart meter we could do that. So yeah, I mean, these are there are few okay. The other one interesting fact was, which we did a voluntary, a home energy analysis, which is nothing than that of a home energy audit, where we ask the consumer or the household to voluntarily talk about their appliances without naming them. I mean, like, how many ACs do you have? And how many 5-star ACs? But then that's not it is a very extensive questionnaire, which is prepared along with the utility, which talks about like, if a 5-star AC 10 years back can't be a 5-star rated AC now, right? I mean, those the granularity of the questions which we try to derive, that it is an AC or a refrigerator or a geyser, which is kind of drives the consumption. And it of course talks region to region, varies from region to region, while and season to season as well. So that's kind of I can tell you that, if I have tried to answer this question properly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to you. Over to RBS.
Thank you, Paras. Thank you, Sabyasachi, once again for this presentation.
My pleasure.
You might like to check the Q&A box in case you feel there's something unanswered. You can answer it directly in the Q&A box, Sabya. With this, can I request you to stop sharing your screen?
Yeah,
please?
the last thing which I kind of wanted to say, when I said in the terms of energy efficiency in global practices, and here we call it as there are two ways of energy efficiency and demand side management. One is the behavioral side of it, which is the soft skill where we kind of, the other is structural, what we say it. What is the structural is nothing than that of the hardware or a smarter appliances. The best energy efficiency, the best demand side management for the nation, for the utility, for the consumer is a mix of both. Nobody can say one is inferior to the other or the other is superior to the one. So this is a mix of the both, which will drive the action and to the net zero goals and decarbonization goals. So that's all. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sabya. I think this sets it up for our second speaker beautifully, and I'm actually looking forward to listening to Mr. Iyer for his presentation on IoT-based energy management system. Over to you, Mr. Iyer. I'll let you know once your screen is visible.
Yeah, thanks very much once again for giving me this opportunity. What I present today is an interesting topic that you have chosen. Firstly, we are talking about decarbonizing the grid through people and technology. Interestingly, it is people who build the technology. And now with so much of AI, we are talking of if technology is going to replace people. So quite an interesting reflection of your title. And I start with my presentation. And I think the points made by Sabyasachi in the previous presentation were more focused around how the B2C situation impacts decarbonization and what kind of actions are necessary for decarbonization, particularly from a consumer point of view and their behavior point of view. As a contrast, or in many ways complementary, what I am trying to present is the actions that happen at the B2B level, because IoT or remote monitoring solutions are more focused on B2B. So I will, to some extent, this presentation will be informative, to some extent it will be analytical, but it will help you give insights on how IoT actually contributes towards decarbonizing the grid. I hope you are able to see the screen.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. So in terms of coverage, I will talk about some setting the context. We will also talk about the role of IoT technology. I'll take you through some case studies, some analytics, also talk about how AI has a contribution towards the IoT space and how AI can really help in terms of optimizing demand, reducing energy consumption through various use cases. And often we come across, is it cost effective? There are questions around ROI, return on investment, which I will touch upon. And also then, talk about certain learnings from IoT implementation, or rather the common mistakes and the lessons learned from there. So moving forward, setting the context, I think all of us know that there are several challenges in achieving decarbonization, and many of those are readily addressed by the change in supply mix, particularly the renewable energy mix going up to as high as 50%, which has helped to a large extent. And of course, reduction in transmission distribution losses in the grid is also contributing significantly to decarbonization. But on the consumer side, there are still many instances where the benefits of alternative energy sources is not very well understood. We come across this in many instances. We also see that the question about, is it really benefiting me? Is there a cost benefit analysis? Good understanding of that is very much not in place. There is also a lack of appropriate energy infrastructure for new renewable energy sources to come in. But again, an important aspect is that if you do not measure or monitor or analyze what you are consuming, you are not likely to take some beneficial actions. And that underlines the importance of remote monitoring and how one could really benefit by using remote monitoring solutions, which is basically the IoT technology that I will talk about. The role of IoT technology, clearly IoT increases and revolutionizes the push towards remote monitoring solutions. And we will talk about some of the use cases there. how we can achieve something better out of our own equipment. That is something that IoT technology helps, and how we monitor the high energy devices on site and to ensure that the operation is really optimized by either controlling the parameters or by setting some clear operational schedules. So IoT helps in a number of ways through its applications. Uh, I'll talk about some of the specific use cases, and these are some of the implementations that we have done in as far as the IoT technology is concerned. Use of IoT technology to monitor various sources at site. So if you have a remote site, let's say like a telecom tower, and there are 500,000 telecom towers all over India. So you can imagine the scale at which some of the monitoring requirements come up. It's quite challenging to get data from remote sites and take efficient actions on based on those to optimize your energy consumption. So typically at a telecom tower site, or it could be even any other remote site which uses various different forms of energy, you have a diesel generator as a backup to the grid. You have the solar PV installations to take care of solar energy, and you have battery banks and inverters also, all of these at the same location. What IoT enables, and this is truly interesting in the way the technology works, is it helps offload some of the grid supply, which may be carbon inefficient, to more efficient alternative sources. So you can clearly switch from one source of energy to another and optimize your energy mix and offer something that is more cleaner and less and more carbon efficient. And it also comes with consumers being more aware about the adoption and the usage practice, which in effect will help us towards achieving the net zero goals. So IoT technology typically works with a combination of hardware and software. You have sensors, you have controllers, you have RTUs, communication gateways, and you have a software platform where you can get all the data from remote sites, analyze them, and you are able to see what corrective measures you need to take. So IoT really enables you to measure, monitor, analyze, and control. Moving forward, and these are some of the charts that we create using our applications. As you can see, one can analyze energy performance and one can predict the usage trends, and you can also see how energy can be optimized. So IoT data can be obtained from the site and can be used to monitor and visualize the usage in any of the remote commercial sites, right? Historic data can also be used to predict usage patterns, and cost estimates. Data from the remote monitoring solution can also be used to obtain a visual representation of the usage trends on site, including its impact on environment. So you can readily measure how much CO2 emission reduction you have achieved, what kind of savings are achieved based on historic data, and also make a forecast of how the trajectory is likely to look. I'll mention about some of the case studies, and this is actual implementation that we have done in several countries at telecom tower sites. And as I mentioned, telecom tower sites often have backup energy sources on site in addition to the grid supply. And these are used to handle the load on site. And the solutions that we provide also help monitor the equipment performance on site, like DG. And one of the key use cases of IoT in telecom tower sites is accurate fuel accounting. Diesel generators are invariably used as a backup to grid, and you can imagine if there are 500,000 sites in India, then how much of diesel is being consumed. Despite the grid being reliable or not reliable, you'll still have diesel generator there because you can't afford to have a mobile network downtime. And when diesel is used in remote site, you can imagine that it's very natural that there will be pilferage, there will be inaccurate fuel accounting, there will be deliberate misreporting. And what IoT solutions and the remote monitoring solutions that we implement help is to actually notify the users about any kind of diesel pilferage that is happening using the diesel sensors that we have. We also can report about the performance of equipment like battery, the battery health and battery life is also known. And you can predict about does the battery need replacement, or does it, can it continue for some more time? So we have used a number of, experiments here to see how the usage of the equipment can be optimized. And what we call the charge discharge cycle of a battery is configured to such an extent that we can use the battery to a larger extent, and without having to, lose the benefits of battery usage, and to go to an extent that the discharge and then subsequently then recharge. So that this entire technology is based on alarms. So the charge discharge cycle is configured with alarms being set so that the intelligent utilization of the battery can be done, and the monetary savings can be maximized, and also the life of the battery can be maximized. When we have done this in telecom sites in several countries, we noticed that for one particular consumer, we were able to achieve a savings of $5 million, where we were able to replace the DG by using the battery, and we were intelligently programming and configuring the whole infrastructure setup in such a way that the savings are maximized. So by doing so, you get the best out of your assets, and you also reduce your diesel consumption, and you're able to achieve a lower carbon footprint. Likewise, a typical example for batteries is that when batteries are used, there is no meter on the battery which tells you how much it will last, right? So IoT technology helps you to measure voltage, current, charge discharge state, the state of charge discharge cycles, the number of cycles that it has gone through, the impedance, the temperature, and know sitting from several thousand kilometers away, you can know about the exact health of the battery and also the life of the battery. In many instances, OEM tells you my battery will last for 5 years. You think that at the end of 5 years, you have to replace because you do not want to take any chances, and you want to have continuity of supply through the battery. It is very likely that the battery may have one more year of life left, and you don't need to necessarily replace it. If you take a well-performing battery and throw it, you are only going to lose money, but at the same time, you are also creating damage to the environment. So knowing the state of charge and knowing the health of the battery and knowing the life of the battery is something that is enabled by IoT technology, and you can exactly predict how long the battery will last, right? Likewise, if there are likely to be early failures, then you can know in advance because our solution will start throwing up alerts that the battery needs to be replaced. It has crossed its useful life and it needs to be replaced. And particularly at remote sites, you need some advance time, you need some lead time to replace the battery. So it helps in both instances, and that is what our solutions have enabled. Similarly, there are examples in HVACs and air handling units monitoring, remote monitoring of cooling, remote monitoring of HVACs, and HVACs can be of different types. There can be simple ACs in retail stores, there can be large chillers, and for each of them, the remote monitoring solutions can help both in terms of energy consumption optimization and also knowing in advance whether the filters need to be cleaned and whether the performance is optimal, whether it can be made more efficient. You can schedule the on and off the usage timings of air conditioning. You can look at historic data and see how the ACs are performing, and you can also enforce a clear set temperature at the site for optimal performance, for optimal user comfort, and reduce the load on the compressor. And clearly, all of this, whenever energy is reduced, there is a direct linkage to a reduction in emission. So clearly those are the case studies that we have implemented, and we have seen the benefits, and we have shown it to our customers. AI again has a role to play where there is data, historic data and correlation between parameters. We can clearly, see the operational performance and see how that can be optimized. These days, what we are trying to do is to also introduce a people count element along with energy consumption and temperature data to see if for a particular number of people count using the camera, is the cooling efficient or not? And that is done using AI technology on the camera. So using a mix of various, technologies available. Similarly, you can create a replica of your physical assets digitally and also do some scenario analysis. You can clearly, see how you can optimize your usage patterns and benefit by reduction in energy consumption. Likewise, as I mentioned, the use cases in HVAC and cooling, using real-time data, you can optimize your performance of your equipment, and you can ensure that there isn't overcooling. In many times, we find that you go to a ATM of a bank and you find that it's much colder than it is necessary, right? Clearly, they are losing energy. Clearly, there is a scope for optimization. And we have deployed our remote monitoring solutions there. We have analyzed the data and we have seen that energy can be reduced to the extent of 20 to 30% there. So there are clear benefits of measuring, monitoring, and analyzing, and then leading to benefits in terms of energy cost reduction. There are similar use cases for battery health monitoring system. Here we see two different blocks of charts, block A and block B. On the left-hand side, if you, in many infrastructure setup like a data center, you will have thousands of batteries, thousands of different battery and several different battery blocks. When they are together and you have all data coming together, it will look very jumbled, as you can see on the left-hand side. But use of AI ML engines help cluster the data sets into similar homogeneous kind of characteristics by which you are able to separate them into clear profiles and getting clear profiles about how much more life is left in the battery. So the second figure on the right hand side shows how similarly placed batteries are performing rather than getting a cluster on the left hand side. So clear use of software and AI technologies where you can take corrective actions on a more informed basis. This is an example from a building management system where there will be several more parameters besides just the cooling. It could include the DG performance, it could include the UPS performance, it could include lighting, and where you have data, you can clearly analyze them in a meaningful manner to derive some decisions on how to regulate, on how to reduce energy consumption. Often a question arises around whether it is cost effective or not. In all our use cases, we have been able to clearly demonstrate how the use of RMS has been useful for customers. Every time we build a case, we demonstrate that it is truly cost effective for them to implement the IoT. So when a customer is worried about how much it will cost, we show them the lifetime savings that are possible and demonstrate the effectiveness of having implemented RMS. There are similar questions on battery health monitoring system. What will I gain if I implement a battery health monitoring system? And we have shown that it helps you save on battery life. It helps you optimize your battery health. It helps you avoid wastage. It helps you defer capex. And based on various assumptions, we work out that the ROI can be as high as 31%. There are clear learnings. One should not assume that IoT implementation means all your problems will be solved. One needs to clearly understand what is the objective of the implementation, What is the kind of data that we are collecting? Is it garbage or is it useful? Uh, and also, whatever data is being analyzed needs to be, acted upon. Otherwise, it has no value. Power lies in data quality. Data quality has to be good, which means that it has to be real time, it has to be contextual, and it has to be accurate. A balance of what data should be on the edge and what should be on the cloud is essential so that you can optimize on cost and ensure that you achieve the desired speed that you want to achieve out of your analytics and also benefit from that. Also, in IoT implementation, it is important that you design it for scale right from the beginning. Do not try to, do shortcuts, have implementation assuming that you want to scale up, and that really, helps you get the best results. Also, user-focused solutions help. IoT adoption grows when it simplifies operations and improves the efficiency. So I'll also quickly dwell upon common mistakes and lessons learned. Starting without clear business outcomes, this is very simple. All of us, need to have a clear understanding of what the technology can help us achieve. And also, you must have clear data set and use it in a very comprehensive manner. You also need to be very sensitive about where we are using it, and particularly in installations like banks and data centers and telecom networks, cyber security is very important. So isolating your solution from the networks of the user organizations is equally important. And every case needs to be, analyzed differently. You can't have a one size fits all approach, and you need to be very sensitive about what the industry requirements are, what the customer requirements are. And continuous optimization, continuous updates are very, very essential, particularly when we are dealing with communication technology. And as you can imagine, over time, communication has evolved from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G now. And it's important to think about how the solutions are going to perform in a changing technology scenario. So I think with that, I come to the end of the presentation. Happy to, respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer. You can stop sharing the screen so that we can get you in the full screen while answering the questions.
Yeah.
Yes. Over to
Thank
you,
you,
Paras. You have 5 minutes to take up the Q&A.
Thank you, Chandrasekharji, for this insightful presentation. It was great to know so much about the energy monitoring and optimization. Generally, in our experience, what we have seen is in international context, at least in the larger facility, energy monitoring is very much like the used. But in Indian context, we see, okay, this is not still a thing that is very widely used. So what are the barriers in adoption of these smart monitorings in the larger facilities in India?
Yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question. First of all, the awareness, there is a need to increase the awareness about the benefits of the technology. And often the question is, how much will it cost? People do not want to pay for reliability, and they don't see the benefits over a longer term, and they want everything, to be achieved in a shorter term. So I would say that making the customers more and more aware, talking to them about the benefits over the life cycle of an equipment, and sharing some real use case and case studies will help them understand the benefits of remote monitoring solution to a greater extent. We are struggling with our customers in India. Every time we pitch to them, we often face the question about the price sensitivity, and there are many other vendors who use Chinese products, and they sell very cheap, and that's a clear barrier for us. We don't do that. We manufacture on our own. We buy the components and we manufacture in India, and it's a completely make in India product. However, when you want reliability, it does cost a little more. And whether the customer is willing to pay more for reliability is a key issue that we often come across. So, but I think we have also seen that customers experience failures of other solution providers, and then they come back to us and say that others have failed, so please come in and help us. So I think sometimes, customers want to go through a cheaper alternative and get burnt and then learn from that experience. We can't help it, but this is how we have seen the market and we have seen how various customers behave. So clear barrier here is one, awareness. Second, the willingness to pay. And third, a full understanding of the life cycle benefits of implementation.
Thank you, sir. The second question leading to this is, first, we have talked about the larger customer, I have asked about it. Second is the residential customer, and with India's increasing the smart meter rollout, data becoming like more available. So do you see these kind of the system being used for the residential customers as well? For example, for the residential AC's energy optimizations. So what do you see there?
Uh, so at the residential level, I think it does not. I think the air conditioners currently being provided and sold by the retailers do have some kind of self-optimization. Although there is scope for greater, reduction in our energy usage, but presently the scale at which it is being used at the residential customers is very, very low. But what we are trying to do is to implement in a multi-site retail kind of situation. So let's say if there is a Tata Trend store which has 300 or 400 outlets across the country, then we have implemented solutions there. The benefits are not really appreciated at the residential level, and that's why the scale of implementation is much lower.
Yes, thank you. And so one more thing about like the presentation you mentioned about the digital twin, right? For a general person like me, if you can explain it, okay, how it works, okay, what it is.
So a digital twin is nothing but a digital footprint of the assets, and exactly how the layout is, how the connections are. So when it comes to control of the equipment, when you have a clear idea of how digitally how the assets are organized and how they are connected, you can take more efficient decisions. You can take decisions to control them, control their usage. It's more about visibility and ease of understanding of how the assets are organized and how they are connected.
So when we are building the digital twin, do we need the real-time data from a smart meter or some other IoT sensors, or how it operates?
Yeah, so clearly applications are built on the cloud where data comes from the remote sites. Data is transferred through the controller and comes to the cloud. When we build applications, we recognize the presence of different infrastructure and the sensors from different assets and the data coming from the different assets give a clear indication of how different assets are performing, how much of energy is being consumed by different assets, or things like parameters like, as I mentioned, voltage or current or impedance, and we are able to create a correlation between all the parameters on the application. So I think the advancements in our software platform and using AI ML techniques is increasingly making these applications more interesting from a energy consumption point of view, energy consumption reduction point of view, optimization point of view, and asset utilization point of view.
So, last question from my side. At my home, I have installed a smart plug, okay, that operates on Wi-Fi, and I have seen like few times it get disconnected. So my question was, when we talk about the IoT, there is a communication medium that is there, right? For example, the Wi-Fi can be there, the radio frequencies can be there, right? So in your experience, which kind of communication technologies work the best, leading to like the less loss of the data and the real-time information?
So yes, your question is very interesting and very pertinent as well. IoT is not just hardware and software, it is also about the communication. But as our founder says, IoT is one third technology, one third engineering, and one third environment. what environment you are operating in is very, very important for the success of IoT. You may be operating in a 55 degrees centigrade environment. You may be operating in a minus 10 degrees centigrade environment. You can't expect technology to be equally efficient in all environments. Sometimes there are assets which are in basement, right, where no signal will come. So it is important to recognize what is the environment and accordingly tailor make your solutions. Uh, when you talk about communication, Wi-Fi is one, wireless protocols are another. Um, these days, we hear about the satellite technology, communication technologies coming into play. Although they are more expensive, they are expected to come down in price, and they can access any remote location where no man exists, right? Like moving ships, or they can be fields where the likely locations for earthquakes. Those kind of situations are also now being supported by satellite communication technologies. So practically the whole Earth remote monitoring solution can be done anywhere on the Earth using different communication technologies. But coming back to your question, it's important to recognize what is my environment, where am I, located, what are the various challenges that can come? Will there be waterlogging? Will there be, a pillar going through where my communication may not work? So you have to use a combination of wireless, wired, and the SIM-based communication to get the best out of your, data. So study the environment, do a proper survey, and then come up with a solution is the answer.
Thank you, sir. It was really helpful. Over to RPS.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer. In fact, if you look at the comments in the chat box, few of the audience have been very appreciative, and I'm sure they represent the wider audience that we have. I'll come back to you, but Mr. Patnaik and Mr. Iyer, see, both of you, the kind of audience that AEEE works with or that participates in the webinars, we have seen, energy efficiency professionals, we have seen policymakers, regulators, project developers. We have seen utility service providers today in the registration when we are going through the registration list for today. So considering all of that, my question to the both of you is, if there is one takeaway that I have to ask for both of you for the attendees in this webinar, something that will prepare them for the next 5 years. Mind you, these professionals can be as someone who is starting his career to someone who has been in the bureaucracy or in the corporate for 20, 25 years, someone like you. So considering all of that, whether these technologies will lead to, for example, loss of jobs and they have to be prepared in alternate ways, or this is your prediction 5 years down the line by the end of this decade, this is one prediction that you want to leave us with. This may be a little loaded question, but if I could put you in a spot and give that one key takeaway apart from all the knowledge in your presentations, which the audience will go and leave with, as well as us from AEEE, what will be that? I'll probably come to Sabyasachi ji first, and then Mr. Iyer.
Thank you. Yeah, it is definitely a loaded question, but then that is very pertinent, very timely as well. Like, I feel like, when it is, as it has been be very nicely told or spelled out, we are in a energy transition mode, like, where the paradigm of energy usage, uh, you know, uh, generation is kind of changing. There are, like, the consumer are much more involved now. So in this case, come AI and ML kind of thing, intervention is going to add on, like, there is the dealings with the consumer is not going to kind of change. The challenges will remain the same, or rather it would be more with the intervention of technology, which the technology, while the utility professionals and others who are there, the youngsters would be aware of, but then ultimately the end users needs to be aware of, that needs to be kind of, when it is just like, when the desktop came in early 90s, and now and like, typewriter going away, and that's like, it it was a business change transition. So that's what I always feel. And of course, the perspective of energy usage, energy generation is changing with renewables coming in, with smarter appliances coming in. Of course, the human intervention is also the behavioral change, as I mentioned, because I mean, I'm coming from that field. I would have to say that. But then, along with the technology, what Mr. Chandrasekhar Iyer would add on, like, these are all the tools, rather, kind of, for the future energy secure and energy equip and more smarter energy world, usage world. That's what I can say. That there is, of course, kind of, it is be a challenge, or rather it would be more responsible statement to make everybody aware. And we have to be, the youngster needs to be very much responsible to take care of this particular the smarter technologies, to use judiciously and efficiently to have the maximum gain. That's all from my side.
Mr. Iyer?
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with Sabyasachi. I think many of the points he made is very, very valid. What I would like to tell, whether it's a youngster or whether it is a senior experienced professional, two important things. There is technology for you as a tool, and there is AI. But AI is not going to replace HI. HI is human intelligence, right? And unless you apply a layer of HI over AI, you will not be able to get the best, right? So do not think that AI is going to replace all jobs. You will need to continuously, use your own intelligence on top of the AI, and develop and use AI as a tool for your decision making rather than overly relying on it. That is one clear message that I would like to give. Second, at this point in time, from the developments that we see a lot of overload of AI. I think if I ask a simple question, has everyone understood what AI is? The answer is no. There is too much hype as well. In many ways, it is something which we experienced or witnessed during 98, 99, 2000, like the dot-com boom. The current AI boom is also something like that. People are over investing in AI without knowing what benefits it is going to bring. India is not able to invest on the same scale as US, right? And in US also, what gets developed today is quickly getting replaced tomorrow. We have to wait for at least a couple of years to see how AI is going to emerge. So we should not make any decisions in a rush. We should wait, and we should see the clear, tangible benefits and use cases, and then try and implement. However, there are simpler applications of AI that I demonstrated on use of data, on use of analytics. But let us not, over invest at this point in time, is the second clear message that I would like to communicate.
Yeah, sure, Sabya. We have taken a note of your message. If you have to leave anyway, we will be wrapping up in the next 5 minutes. Mr. Iyer, one last thing. When will I be, as a consumer, be able to trade power with my neighbor as an UPI? There has been a lot of talk recently that, like we do payment over UPI nowadays, in the coming years, we will be able to trade power as well as end consumers like an UPI. So what do your thoughts on that, Mr. Iyer?
Oh, yeah. I think there is a clear understanding that this is a possibility. And we are also seeing how technology is getting more and more enabled to achieve some of this. It's not just about trading power from one to another. It's also about, if you have surplus power in your car, you can pump in power to the grid and get some money quickly, right? So we are going to see these realities emerge in the next few years. And I think the adoption of technologies will happen faster than we can imagine. So clear benefits here, and I'm quite optimistic about the developments that you spoke about.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer. Thank you, Sabyasachi, even though has left the webinar. But we are very privileged to have both of you as presenters today, and more importantly, having Oracle and Sixth Energy as AEEE members. We are also very lucky to have an audience that has been extremely patient, has registered and been very engaged right through the webinar. So thank you for that. In fact, like we work with our two presenters today, we would also like to work with all our attendees and the participants in this webinar. As I said at the beginning, AEEE is a member-driven organization. So I'm sure all of you come from various backgrounds, various organizations, whether it be the academia or the industry. Our members range from startups to consultancies to educational institutions, industry giants, as well as research bodies. So we will be glad to work together with you in some capacity or the other as part of our research projects, as part of white papers, or even as part of any sponsorship events, and so on. So please feel free to write in to us at info@aeee.in or membership@aeee.in, and do follow us on social media and on our website. Finally, as a wrap up to this webinar, we will be sending a follow-up email to all the participants. We may not be able to share the presentations. We will, however, share the recording of this webinar for your reference, for all the participants' reference. And we will also provide the contact, at least the email ID of the presenters, so that you can get in touch one-on-one with our esteemed speakers that we had in today's presentation, in case you have any follow-up questions or discussions that you wish to have with them. Finally, as I said, this will be a continuing series under the ION Zero platform that AEEE has developed. Our next webinar is most likely to be on 25th September, focused on the cold chain sector. And all of you will again get an invite for this as well. And it is your participation that encourages us to organize such knowledge sessions month on month, very regularly through the AEEE ION Zero platform. With that, I would bring this webinar to a close. Once again, thank you, dear participants. Thank you, dear speakers. Thank you, my colleagues, for facilitating this webinar. And I wish all of you a very good evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.